Moira, you asked why I flinch at ticking? Well, it's because of the Caledonian Forest. My family lived by rules. Circle the cabin 3 times. Knock twice before the door. Feed the tree line. You never open that pot. In 2005, my grandmother died, and I went back. They let me leave as a boy. They never let me go. Earlier that week, it was the day that I received the news. I already knew something was wrong. I can't explain it. Not really. I woke up with this uneasy feeling in my chest, and it just lingered there all day. And then late that afternoon, when I got the call telling me my Grandma Myra had died, I felt a saddened relief, because I knew I wasn't going crazy. I had some sort of instinctual sixth sense or something. And then I felt terrible for feeling that way. I hadn't seen her in over 10 years, but she had been one of the few family members that I had left in this world. And now she had gone too. I took some time off work to organize her funeral, and then I hired a car and I drove up to the town of Avamore in the Scottish Highlands for the service. And my grandmother was by her own definition a recluse, so it didn't surprise me that only 3 of us attended the service. I had no idea who the other man and the woman were, but they scuttled off as soon as the service ended. Afterward, I sat at the pub just staring at the platter of sandwiches I ordered for the wake and feeling the whiskey that I was drinking swish in my empty stomach. And then I awoke the next morning in the back seat of my car, my jacket for a blanket, my mouth was bone dry, and the pub wasn't open yet, so I had to walk to the local store. I bought some water and iced coffee and whatever snacks I could grab. But that Caledonian Forest loomed in the background, this wonder of murky green, and that seemed to call to me. I knew there was no avoiding it. Grandma Myra lived at the mouth of the forest, secluded from the rest of the world, and someone had to sort out her cabin. And seeing as her son, my father, he was probably wallowing in a puddle of his own alcohol-induced inflictions, his whereabouts unknown. Task fell to me. And then as soon as I parked up at the outskirts of the forest and I took that crooked path through the trees, all those feelings flooded back. I'd lived here for a few years, back when I was a teenager. My mother passed away and my father was drinking himself into an oblivion. But before then, we visited my grandmother a handful of times a year. And through my young eyes, I found her need for all her rules funny. She poured a jug of milk along the tree line. She hummed as she circled her cabin 3 times. She knocked on her own door twice before she ever dared open it. Back then, my parents said that Grandma Myra sometimes felt lonely, living out here all alone. And these things that she did made her feel better. But I saw the glint in their eyes, one I didn't actually understand until I was a teen. My parents had thought she was crazy. And when I was old enough to think that way, I thought she was crazy too. As the cabin became more visible through the pine trees, it felt like nothing much had really changed. I burst into tears. I'm not really sure why. And then before I could stop my feet, I started striding around the cabin 3 times, humming softly as I did so. I knocked on the oak door twice before I opened it, a force of habit, I guess. What do you think? I didn't need a key. Grandma didn't believe in those things. She used to tell me that no one would bother her up there. They would make sure of that. As I creaked open the door, the trees seemed to whistle around me, and that cool breeze tickled the nape of my neck. I stepped inside, closing the door behind me, taking in that familiar floral and herbal and musk scents. Nothing much had changed. The overfilled apothecary cabinet sat atop the same wooden table. The 2 floral armchairs covered with knitted blankets, faded and dirt-speckled. The pine rocking chair glistened with cobwebs, and that small kitchen jammed full of stained ladles and rusty pots. I slumped into one of the armchairs and I regretted leaving my drinks in the car. I guess I forgot the discomfort of collecting rainwater to boil and shivering myself to sleep beneath the layers of itchy blankets. The wind whistling outside made me sit up. I could sit there all day, brooding on the past. Or I could sort this place out, find any relevant paperwork, put it for sale sooner rather than later, and profit. that would go to my father to drink away his pain. I looked through the kitchen cupboards and a hand-carved wooden handle broke off in my hand. Inside one of the drawers, I found sprigs of dried lavender and stones with letters and symbols scratched into them and sewn with thread the color of rusted iron, blood orange, and other items that Grandma always treasured. I slammed the drawer shut, knowing this was all pointless. Grandma didn't have any paperwork. I couldn't stay in this cabin. I wasn't a lonely teenager anymore who'd just been sucked into her beliefs. I was an adult who'd gotten away from this place. Somehow, for some reason, I whispered, "I'm sorry, Grandma. I can't do this." I swung open the door, fully prepared to leave, and then I saw what was waiting for me on the doorstep. A piece of crimson fabric bound together with blood orange string. It definitely hadn't been there before. I felt my heart thump as I bent and I unwound that string. And inside was a sprig of dried pine, a couple of fiery red hair strands with it. It was a hair color that my grandma had in her youth. And I wrapped it up and I balanced it on my palm as I said out loud, "Thank you." I went back inside and I placed a sprig in the drawer next to the sewn together petals. Memories came back to me. Ones of Grandma receiving gifts. Ones that she claimed that they gave her for following the rules. I rubbed my head grabbing tufts of my dark hair as I tried to remember the rules. I mean, there had been dozens of them. Some I knew, such as pacing the cabin and the knocks on the door, but others I never knew. She never told me. Each night through my bedroom window, I'd watched her leave, a cooking pot in her hand. I never knew where she was going or what she was doing. And within the hour, she'd always return, and the pot was rattling so loudly I heard it from upstairs. I never knew what was in it. I asked her once, and through her pursed lips she said, "Well, boys your age should be sleeping at this hour. I was just collecting rainwater." I've never heard rainwater rattle. Have you? I used to collect rainwater each morning after a storm from buckets left out there, not pots. I knew she was lying, just as she knew I knew she was. But I never asked her again. And at 16, when she was pouring a jug of milk on the tree line, I packed a bag and I left, leaving only a note in my place. I have to leave now, else I never will. I should have known that I'd always end up back in this cabin. I sat in the armchair and I just listened to a ticking that I couldn't place. And I knew I needed to leave, but my exhaustion won out. Then the next thing I remember was waking up in the armchair, drool dripping down my chin, and that unplaceable ticking seeming to vibrate through the room. And then in that bleak dust glow, the armchair was gently rocking, the creaking combining with the ticking until it became so thunderous that I covered my ears. That was Grandma's rocking chair. She never let anyone sit in it, not my parents, not me. I stared at it with unease, and as I did this, I whispered, I should have not come back. And then the cabin fell silent. The rocking chair was motionless, and the ticking vanished. The quiet was unnatural, even in a deserted place like this. I expected something to happen, but I still jumped when it did. A rattling came from the understairs cupboard. I swallowed my own spit and I walked toward the door, knowing that the aged floorboard should be creaking beneath my feet, but unable to hear anything other than the rattling. I couldn't turn the door handle, as there was none. I pushed and I knocked on the door until a plank caved in, revealing the darkness within it, and I felt my heart thumping as I forced myself to reach my arm through that gap and turn the handle from the inside. The rattling stopped, and that ticking returned, and I patted my hands over the spot where the handle should have been, and my fingers were finding only splintered wood and empty space. A clicking sound was followed by the door opening, and I staggered forward, tripping into darkness and into pots, dozens of them, their contents tumbling around me. Stones with blood orange letters hit me, broken charms, their true form lost beneath layers of rust. Yellowed and rotten teeth rained down on me, and I staggered back and I heard a crunch beneath my foot. I looked at it in disbelief. Visible in the room's faint glow, a crushed, severed finger, bits of the decaying flesh now stuck to my shoe. My eyes followed the blood-orange thread woven through it. They enlarged on seeing the horrifying truth. There were dozens of them, a string of fingers, connected by the thread to form a grotesque bunting. I turned and I ran out of that cabin and into the dusk-lit forest. I seemed to lose all my sense of my surroundings. I ran blindly. Grandma had told me that there were consequences if they got mad. Was that what was under the stairs cupboard? Was that what the understairs cupboard was full of? These consequences? What did Grandma Myra really do when she went out each night with an empty pot that came back rattling? I didn't want to know. I guess I just wanted to leave. And that crooked path led me deeper into the trees. I heard something, a child's playful hum, and I recognized the tune. It was the one Grandma had hummed as she paced that cabin 3 times. I started running, branches wafting past me as I moved, unaware if I was heading toward the sound or away from it. I must have run in circles until I ended up back there, at that cabin. The moon was my only light as the nighttime dulled the world around me, and on the doorstep, a rusty pot was waiting for me. I lifted it, but instead of rattling, it sloshed, blood-orange liquid spilling over the sides, splattering onto the white shirt that I hadn't changed out of since the funeral. I didn't know where it had come from or what it was. I paced the cabin 3 times while humming that tune. I knocked on the door, stepping over the pot of blood orange as I made my way inside, and I sat in that armchair and stared at the motionless rocking chair. Spiders with blood orange spots were crawling over it, weaving their webs. The ticking started, the ticking I couldn't place. I knew I should have taken the pot and walked into the forest with it. That's what I knew they wanted me to do, but I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to follow those rules. I lay there all night, not moving, even when the spiders scuttled off the rocking chair and instead crawled onto me, weaving their delicate webs over my face. Morning came. I don't think I slept. I heard a knocking on the door. 2 knocks. And I rose, pulling the blanket of cobwebs off me, and cautiously walked toward the door. It swung open, but no one was there. I stared down at the doorstep, holding my breath when I saw a package of crimson fabric. I bent next to it, and I used my finger to untangle the thread. It all just unfolded like petals, revealing the ghastly truth within it. A severed finger, the end encrusted in blood, with blood-orange thread sewn through the skin. I stepped over it, knowing that I must try and leave this place, and through the trees, I heard humming. Not a child's this time, an adult's. I hummed it too, a humming that led me to the tree line, only I wasn't alone. A man hummed there, a bottle of whiskey in one hand, and a carton of milk in the other. And he poured the milk as he swigged at the whiskey. White liquid was simmering into the dirt and the leaves, while smoky cinnamon filled the air. And I looked at the man, taking in his thinning hair and sallow skin, and the bloody gaps sewn with blood orange thread where his index finger on his left hand used to be. "You came," I said, not knowing what else to say to him. "My estranged father." He didn't stop his ritual, but as he swigged his whiskey, he said to me, "Son, go now, while they let you. This is my burden now." And then as he started humming, I found myself nodding. An action he could not see with his back to me, but I could see my car from there. The world beyond the forest was visible to me once again. I left without looking back, and I drove home back to London, and I went back to my life. and I never returned to that cabin. Then 11 years later, I received a call telling me my father was dead. I didn't ask questions. I never returned. But sometimes at night, beneath a ticking that I can't place, I hear a whispering hum tell me that I must return. It's my burden now. Dean's father, Gordon McKay's body, was found in the Caledonian Forest, a mile from the cabin that he lived in. All of his fingers were missing. The stubs were sewn shut with blood orange thread, and hanging from the tree above it were his fingers, and ones belonging to others. Grotesque bunting spanning the branches. The Caledonian Forest in the Scottish Highlands is a place of myth and lore, which, although stark in size compared to what it once was, still contains many mysteries and secrets. Dean held his father's funeral in London, and was the only person to attend it. He still vows never to return to his Grandma Myra's cabin, and has left it there to rot and decay. What happened still haunts him, and he continues to hear whispering hums telling him that it's his burden now. He is adamant that he will not return to, however much they may try to lure him back. For more scary horror stories, please share and subscribe.